If you wanna say it loud, 'cause someone out there listening. If you're gonna think it, think out loud, 'cause you don't know what you're missing till you let them all in. Oh, oh, oh. Tell them what it's all about. Oh, oh, oh.
You're listening to the Divorce Registry podcast, talking about real people, real issues, and real solutions.
I'm Jonathan Fogel, a family law attorney.
And I'm Amanda Johnson, a family law paralegal. This is the Divorce Registry podcast, where we provide informative, entertaining, and invaluable insights into all aspects of family law. You can reach us at thedivorceregistry@gmail.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook.
Amanda and I are partners at work and in life. We are both divorced, and we have 5 kids between the two of us. Some call it chaos. We just call it family.
We call it chaos too.
Yeah, you're right.
The signs say you'll be coming up roses soon. It all comes back to you. It all comes back to you.
Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning, Mr. Fogel.
Mr. Fogel. Wow, what is that all about?
I just thought I'd start it more formally
Yeah.
today.
Well, I'm going to start out by apologizing because I don't know if I have a cold or just a little frog in my throat.
No, you have a cold.
I have a little bit of a cold.
It's just a small one.
Yes, and I'm hoping that I have been drinking tons of water and taking that cold easy or whatever it's called. Well, I don't even know what it's called.
Coldies.
Coldies, yes.
Or easy.
Easy. It's easy. So I'm trying to just get rid of it as quickly as I
Well,
can.
because you're, about to get on a plane and head down to see your son.
Yes.
So you need...
Yeah, I'm super excited, and I don't want to be have a cold when I'm going down to visit him, especially, we have a big dad's weekend down there, and so I want to spend some time with him, and I don't want to be sick. So
Right.
I'm going to do my best to continue to feed this cold with as much vitamins and minerals in order to get rid of it.
There you go.
So that's why my voice sounds like this, although I think it kind of always sounds like this.
Jeez.
Well, first, I wanted to start out by saying congratulations to you, because last podcast you talked about that you were going to be auditioning for a show, and you hadn't been to an audition, I won't say how many years, a long time.
Yes, a long time.
And you auditioned, and you got into the show.
I got in.
I'm so excited
I know.
for you.
It's been, I did. And let's not spend a ton of time on this, but I did get in, and I
No, I want to talk about
conquered
you more.
my fears, and it's been great. And I will say I'm the oldest person in this cast, for sure. But I think I'm embracing that as well. I mean, I think that I bring a whole different perspective to our characters. So
Absolutely. And so first and foremost, I am so proud of you. I'm proud of you for putting yourself out there. I'm proud of you for, for doing this and going for it. And I think you set a great example for your kids to show them that, if you want something, you can go and you can do it. And then also you said, speaking about being the oldest person in the cast, you made a joke about this. We were talking about how the director was saying, hey, try to bring this kind of feeling towards it or whatever. You're like, oh, yeah, I got that. I've got plenty of life experiences I could draw from.
I think I called it, I have plenty of shit to pull from. Plenty, right? As we all do as we get older.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to mention that. Congratulations. I'm very excited for you. And maybe at some point we can tell people where it is, what the dates are. You can promote it. And
We will.
Everybody can come and watch you in the show. And it's a Shakespeare show.
It is.
So that's an extra challenge.
Hence worth something, whatever.
Yes.
No, it's not what we want to make it. So no.
Oh,
It's
that's
really
great.
fun.
That's great. Well, congratulations. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
So let's talk about what we're here for today,
Yes.
which is talking about family law, divorced parents, divorcing couples, how we can help them, right? The purpose of the Divorce Registry podcast is not to talk about the law always, but to talk about practical advice that people that are going through divorce should have. And it's not just people going through divorce, but people thinking about divorce, people that are already divorced, I
Yep.
mean.
Well, and some of this applies to people who aren't not even divorced,
Right.
right? I mean, we're going to touch on things that everybody needs to know about.
Yes, and that's today specifically. And this came up because I have 3 kids, as you know. One of who's a What? You just found that out? One who's a sophomore in college, one who's a senior in high school, and one who's a sophomore in high school. And so what do I have to think about all the time is, number one, where are my kids going to go to college? Are they going to go to college? How am I going to pay for college, right? Their mom and I are divorced, and so how do we fill out the forms? How do we work together to fill out the form? It is overwhelming. It is like not only a second job, but a third job, a fourth job, and then just trying to communicate and work with her on that has its own challenges.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what we wanted to do is bring someone on today that could help our listeners navigate through that system, understand the terminology, and provide that advice. So today we are very excited to have on an expert in this area. His name's Jay Benanav. He is a longtime college consultant. He is the founder of College Inside Track, which helps families find the right academic school and the right financial fit. He has a law degree. He's a recovering attorney, I'll call him.
I like that.
He attended Harvard School of Government and Columbia University School of Business. And what I want to point, what my understanding is college now is the second most expensive purchase parents will make outside of their house, right?
Right.
And there are now over 5,300 colleges and universities in the U.S., from beauty schools all the way to Harvard, right? And the cost is really getting out of control. And how do you figure out the right college? And Jay helps families by giving them an advantage to save them time and money on this process. So Jay, thank you so much and welcome to the Divorce Registry podcast.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Amanda. I really am excited to be here today.
Tell us first, what is a college consultant?
Well, college consultant is a relatively new profession. I've been doing this for about 13 years now, and I think I was among the first, certainly in the Twin Cities, but it's now a recognized profession. We get certified, et cetera. So think of us as real estate agents for college. What I mean by that is when you buy or sell your house, you could certainly do it yourself. Chances are you won't. Number one, you don't know how to do it. Number two, you'll screw it up and then have to go to a lawyer to get it unscrewed. So most people hire a realtor because who has the time, the expertise? Because the realtor is going to do it better. Now, obviously, you're going to pay something for that. It comes in that case out of the fees, out of the cost of the house, et cetera. So we do the same thing, but on the college level. This process is much more complex than it was 10, 20 years ago. It's gotten so complex that most families, most people, even lawyers like yourself, it's just overwhelming. So what we do is we kind of cut through all that. We help families find the right school for their kids, help the student sort of determine what is the right fit for that student, and what's the right fit academically and socially, and certainly not last but not least would be financial. Can you afford it, or where are you going to find the schools that will give your daughter, your son, the kind of education at the cost that you can afford without going into a lot of debt? So think of us as the realtors of college.
And so when people come and meet with you, do you meet with the entire family? Do you meet with the student? What's that process look like?
Well, typically we start with the entire family. It's important to understand what the family is thinking about, both for what kind of student are we looking at? What does student maybe want to major in? Which is not uncommon. The student doesn't know. What's the financial situation? Are the parents, is there an intact family, or is there a divorce in the family, or is there some other, it's not just divorce situations. You've got all kinds of permutations of families. So typically we like to meet with the family first, just to get a sense of what's happening. What can a family afford? How much, if any, do they have saved up? And of course we need to meet with the student, because ultimately the student has to be involved in the process. So we start with the family, and then if we work with the family, we typically meet with the student, and on occasion we bring the family into it as well. One of the things I find out is that students are much more willing to be open and honest sometimes when mom or dad are not sitting there.
Sure.
It's a very different dynamic. So we meet with everybody at some point.
Jay, how early? What is the timeline for meeting with a student, or their family? Like what grade? What, or does it
Because
depend?
Amanda's kids are 10 and 14. Is it too early for her to start this process?
Well, probably 10 is a little too early, but
Thank God.
typically most of our families that we start working with, I'd say somewhere between freshman and sophomore year in high school. We don't do the financial planning piece of it. So if somebody wants to set up a 529, et cetera, we could advise them, but we don't really do that. We really look at okay, what are you looking for in college? So I would say somewhere between the freshman and sophomore year in high school. Having said that, here we are in October. We're still having senior families come to us, and we certainly can do that, but it creates a lot of stress for the family if you wait until senior year. That's for sure.
Yes, I think when you and I spoke, Jay, I think maybe you could hear that stress in my voice.
I could. Yes,
with
I was a little worried about you there on the other end. I was thinking of calling 911.
Yeah, you're not the first person that's been worried about me talking about these things, but I mean, I certainly am guilty of this, right? I mean, for our listeners, I've made plenty of mistakes, right? And this is one of them. I thought when my son went to college, I'm like, oh, I can figure out these forms. I can do this. I can understand it. And now I'm in a situation with my daughter who's about to go to college, and I'm like, this is just overwhelming. It is a lot of information. It gets more and more difficult, it seems to me, every year. I mean, I remember when I went to college back in 1980s, I don't even remember filling out any of these forms, or, I mean, I applied to one school. I knew where I wanted to go. I applied to that school. I got in. At the time, I think it was like $5,000 a year for that school. And that was it. I mean, I don't remember filling out all these forms or the common application and all these other things that people are doing now. It just becomes overwhelming. And so for people like me, it's not too late as with a senior to come in and meet with you, although it may just be more stressful.
That could be true, but people make all sorts of mistakes. I can't go through all of them in 15 minutes, but a couple of really big ones they make is, number one, they make some assumption that because they have a bright student, a good student, they're going to get a lot of money from every school. That's not the case. Some schools are generous, some schools are not. Some schools give merit aid, some do not. So there's all kinds of complexities that most people are not aware of. And if you're applying to schools, for example, that don't give any merit aid, which versus need-based aid, you could find yourself paying $30,000, $40,000 a year versus a school that might be a higher sticker price, but the bottom line cost can be a fraction of that $40,000. So that's one mistake. But there are probably a dozen common mistakes people make on just even looking for the college for their student. And beyond that, then how do they fill out the forms? That's another mistake people make.
Right. So I know Amanda had a question about this, the sticker price versus the actual price.
So I looked up, and I was just doing some research, and I got onto, and I'm sure you're going to know every site that we would say. So, but it was College Raptor, and it was about myths or whatever. And it says, okay, using College Raptor, you can quickly and easily get an estimate of your net price at any four-year college in the U.S. And it lists, for example, Cornell College, $59,000. And then it says your net price, $4,636. What is this? Is this true? Is this,
it may be true. It may not be.
Okay.
Part of it is by law, every school is required to have what's called a net price calculator. And that's where a lot of people draw this information from. The problem with those net price calculators, some of them are very good. They'll give you a pretty good estimate. Some of them are really bad. The law doesn't require that they be any good. The law just requires that they be there. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to use those and to know how accurate they are. But I think the overall message that they're trying to send is you can find a school that costs $55,000 sticker price. And if you are familiar with that school's financial policies, you could determine, or you could send your student to that school for significantly less. Now, a lot of it depends on family income. A lot of it depends on whether the school is giving merit aid. But it's not uncommon for us to find schools that would have a $60,000 sticker price, and the family pay. I have one family that's paying about $1,300 to go to a school that costs $55,000.
Wow.
And that's unusual.
Sure.
Typically, it's more than that. But our students tend to pay, half or even a quarter of the sticker price. Now, again, that only applies to some schools. If you're applying to state school, like University of Minnesota or KU down in Kansas, you're probably not going to get a lot of money because they just don't have a lot. It's schools that have the large endowments. They're giving you the money. They're bringing down the price for you.
So what I'm hearing you say is that sometimes the schools that are more expensive, like a private school, has more money available to give for scholarships and grants than something like the University of Minnesota, which may be a less expensive school. But when you go there, you're probably going to pay closer to the sticker price because they just don't have the funds to give to people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's one of the other mistakes people make is they look at the sticker price and they make an automatic assumption. I can't afford $60,000, so I'm going to default to the University of Minnesota or Madison, both of which are great academic institutions. But the truth is, if you go to Madison, you're going to pay $30,000. If you go to Minnesota, you're going to pay $28,000. So the mistake they make is not digging deeper and determining, will this school give my student money so that it will cost less than the U of M or Madison? I'd say of the students that we work with, probably the ones that go to private university versus public, and we have students who go to both. My own son, I have 3 boys, one went to Madison and 2 of them went to private. I would say 80% of those that go to private schools end up paying less than the University of Minnesota.
Wow.
So, yeah, it just depends on the situation, but it's very common to have the sticker price discounted quite a bit.
So let me ask this. I mean, one of the myths that I hear is that, the only way you're going to get financial assistance is if you have like a 3.9 GPA or you have a high GPA or you graduate top of your class. That's the only way you're going to get any kind of financial assistance. Otherwise, there's no other way to get money.
Well, certainly if you have a student like that, congratulations. My 3 boys were not there, but let me tell you, they were not. However, that's not true that you have to get your 3.9 and 35 on the ACT. There are many schools in this country that are looking for students who are, a 3.0 student and a 25 ACT or a 3.2 student. So it obviously depends on the school you're applying to. If you're applying to McAllister, you're not going to get a lot of money even if you get in with a 3.3 and a 28.
Right.
But if you're the same student applying to Beloit College or Kalamazoo or Worcester, Puget Sound, Lewis and Clark, you may get money because that's the student they're going after. So
sure.
you have to understand your academics and what the school's looking for. On top of that, of course, there's need-based aid, which I won't go into, but that's really the second piece of the financial aid puzzle. How much are you going to get based on your family's income?
Well, and I wanted to bring that up because this is, in the context of divorce, and this is where I sit, right? I mean, my kid's mom and I are divorced, so we have 2 separate households. The first thing we need to do is fill out this FAFSA form. And whenever I hear that, I just, something about me just kind of cringes, I'm like, oh God, really? I got to fill out these forms. You got to put all your financial information in. And the FAFSA form, it's what's free assisted. I can't remember what it stands for, but that's a form that has to be filled out in order to get federal financial aid. Is that right?
Well, first of all, congratulations on pronouncing FAFSA correctly. Most people mispronounce it. Secondly, it means federal application for free student aid. Okay. For federal student aid.
Yeah.
So you're partially correct. You have to fill that form out to get federal scholarships and grants, things like the Pell Grant, things like the federal loan. That's required for any of those. However, the schools also use it to determine how much they will give you from their resources. So if you're a low-income family going to school that costs $60,000 and you fill out your FAFSA and you get this magic number called EFC, expected family contribution. If you have a very low expected family contribution, let's assume $5,000, and the school costs $60,000, you're going to get a lot of need from some schools. So it's not so you have to fill out not only for the federal loans, grants, work studies, but also for the schools need-based aid assistance.
Got it.
So you have to do it. Every school in the country, if you want need-based aid, requires a FAFSA. Every single school.
And you, Jay, I mean, obviously this is where you come in as an expert on this, is that when a family comes in and they filled that out, these schools they're in the back of your head. You already know probably which ones would be best fits.
Yeah, I could tell a family, and that's part of what we do. If the student wants to apply to, let's say, NYU, New York University in New York, which is a great school, I can tell them they're not going to give you a lot of money because they just don't need to, because everybody wants to go to New York. So if you want to go to New York, you either go to Columbia or NYU. They don't have to give students money to attract them. But if you want to go to another school that will give money, I can direct you to that school. So yeah, that's the other mistake people make, is they assume that every school is going to give you the same amount of money. It's just not true. It's partially supply and demand. So yeah, I have a pretty good sense of who gives money, who they give it to, who they don't give it to, et cetera, et cetera. Again, it's based on a lot of experience, and it's based on the family's FAFSA as well.
And so when people are divorced filling out the FAFSA form, how does that work with respect to whose income does the university look at when you fill out those forms?
Really important question. The answer is the FAFSA should be filled out by the parent that the student lives with the most. So forget who has legal custody, forget what the decree says, forget any of that stuff. Or forget who even claims them as a tax deduction. All the FAFSA wants to know, who does the student live with the most, 50% plus one. So let's assume for a minute the child lives with the mom, and the mom makes $200,000.
Sure.
And the dad makes $50,000. Well, it would certainly be, if you can work it out, and I realize it can't always happen, but if you can, it would be advantageous to have the student live with the dad who makes the least amount of money, because the FAFSA doesn't want to know how much the non-custodial in sense of FAFSA makes. They just want to know how much household income does the student lives with the most make. So we direct our families, if at all possible,
right,
to have the student live with the lower income family 50% plus a day, and if it's close, you can make that argument.
Right. And it probably makes a big difference, right? I mean, if both parents are making the same amount of money, right? If both parents are making 150 or both parents are making whatever amount, it doesn't necessarily matter for how much aid they're going to be entitled to. But like you said, if one's making a significant amount more, if they can arrange it to live with that parent that makes less for that year prior to going to the school or during the year they fill out the FAFSA form, that could make a big difference on what they're eligible for as it relates to that EFC that you talked about, that expected family contribution.
Exactly right. So, a lot of people make the mistake of filling out the FAFSA based on whatever they think, and it's often the parent who makes the most money. I'll give you an extreme example. I worked with a family a few years ago where the dad was making $250,000 and the mom was making $30,000. Well, it was pretty clear, and they lived in the same city, so so the daughter lived with the mom for 50% plus a day.
Yep.
It made a big, huge difference. That daughter, that young woman going to school in California, cost $60,000, and she's paying about $12,000. Had we filled out the dad's information, she would have got nothing.
Wow.
So it's
now, are there? Go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
So even if you don't get along with your ex-spouse, it's definitely to the benefit of your student.
That never happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask you this. Are there ever extenuating circumstances, and is that something you help with? Like, for example, let's say someone is making a considerable amount of money. They're the one who the child lives with, but they have other debts. They have other loans that they have to pay. They may make a lot, but they also have quite a bit of debt that they're responsible for, or maybe they have a second student that's also in college. Are there extenuating circumstances where a call can be made to the financial aid office at that school to plead your case or something like that to try to get more money?
Absolutely. The FAFSA is pretty cut and dry. Asks 108 questions. People make many mistakes on it, I'll tell you that, first of all. One of the things we do if we work with you is we make sure your FAFSA is correct, or make sure someone else checks it. But beyond that, it just asks a bunch of dry questions. All right. If you have a situation that isn't clear from the FAFSA, for example, you have, let's say, unreimbursed medical expenses, or you take care of an elderly parent, or you've had a loss of income because of job situation,
Sure.
or something like that has happened. That doesn't show up on the FAFSA.
I was going to say,
So,
I mean, I've filled this thing out twice. There's no questions on there like, tell me about your own personal situation. Right?
Well, in your case, Josh, they probably don't want to hear.
No,
about it,
that is true. They definitely don't.
But in most cases, yes, you can call the financial aid office, and it's what's called professional judgment. Many schools will take that into consideration. I see this a lot. Again, one of the things we do is we help the families prepare an appeal for that, and we've seen an additional $5,000-$10,000, per year, which is a lot of money. Our average is about $8,000 on appeal. We appeal most of our financial aid awards either for financial reasons or for reasons of, well, my students also got into these schools that are competitors of yours, and it costs us less to go to these. Can you do something? And schools will often increase the award based on that. But yes, certainly financial circumstances that aren't reflected in the FAFSA should be discussed with a financial aid officer at the particular college. Again, some colleges are very receptive, some are not.
Right. And like you said, the ones that maybe are in more high demand aren't necessarily going to negotiate, because they're like, look, if you can't afford to come here, we got 100 other people lined up that are ready to pay full board.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Jay, can you let us know? It sounds like you kind of run things maybe a la carte, maybe as much as a family needs you, or they're going to hire you for a certain portion thing or all of it. Is there a price range? Sometimes when we get asked that, we can't give price ranges, right? As attorneys, it's just really hard. But can you give us anything for our listeners to know?
Sure. We actually don't do much a la carte. And the reason is everything we believe is tied together. Looking for the schools that fit the student academically and socially and financially is an important part. We go through the whole process. We work with the student on the essay, the application, everything that's involved. And there's literally hundreds of steps. What we've discovered is that if a family calls us at the very end and they want us to appeal, we could certainly do that, and we have. The problem is we're limited because we're limited to the schools that the student's gotten into, and some of the schools that the student's gotten into, or the school that the student wants to go to, isn't going to give aid no matter what you do. So
it's hard for you to do your job effectively if you're handcuffed.
Right. So, we have done it. We'll certainly look at someone's FAFSA. That's not that. I mean, it'll take a family hours to do without us. With us, it'll take them, probably. I just did one yesterday. I sat down with the family, and it took me about 15 minutes to do the FAFSA. And then there's a second form, which I won't even discuss now. It's called the CSS profile. That takes people hours. But we can do that. But we're not as effective as we would be if we start with the student from the beginning. So we do have a flat fee. So what that means is you pay us, it's $4,995. We guarantee that you will get at least that and more back, or you get your money back. We have a lot of repeat customers. We have about 500 families a year we deal with. I would say, at least my own situation, I only work with people who I've worked with before. Now we have other counselors who work with our new families. We have people come back for second, third, fourth children. So I think they feel like they're getting some value out of this. What I tell people is, if you can't afford $5,000, how are you going to afford $34,000 a year to go to school? And we're confident that we're going to save you significantly more than that. Significantly more.
Well, and so much of that is, yes, you're making an upfront payment that may sound like a large amount to some people, but at the end of the day, when your child graduates from college, do they have $160,000 worth of debt or only $50,000 worth of debt? I mean, it can be, in the long run, that is such a savings and such a gift that you are giving to your kids. I mean, to not graduate with this huge albatross that's hanging around their neck that they really can't get out of.
Right.
I mean, think of how many years you have to work. Coming out of college, you're not getting a job for $150,000, $200,000. You're maybe getting a $30,000 a year job. That's not even netting enough to pay any of that back, let alone, the whole thing.
Right. And I got smarter with my own kids as I went through this process. I have 3 boys. My youngest, by then I was a genius when it came to college. He graduated college and grad school, Princeton grad school, with 0 debt. He came out, he owes nobody a penny. So in fact, Princeton paid him to come. Now he's a pretty smart kid, but there were other factors that were in there that I learned about. So he's coming out. What a gift. He doesn't have to take 3 jobs just to pay back his loan. He's debt free.
Well, I'm going to be sending my kids over to you. And
well, yeah, you should have done that with the oldest. I mean, you've done it twice.
Jay, you're just making me feel worse now. Now, I'm just, this whole time I'm listening to you, I'm just getting more and more depressed. But I'm going to make the right choice today. I'm telling you.
All right.
I'm going to call you. And to get a hold of you, Jay, it's collegeinsidetrack.com. Is that right?
Correct. collegeinsidetrack.com.
And we'll have that information on our Facebook page. People can get a hold of you through that. And again, thank you so much for joining us. This is really invaluable information that you helped us provide to our listeners today.
Well, it was a pleasure. And Amanda, I'm looking forward to seeing you in whatever, Hamlet or
as you like it.
As you like it.
That's a good one.
It is a good one. Yes.
That is a good one. That's a good one. Good. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Jay. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks.
The information in this podcast was for general purposes only. The information provided was not legal advice or a legal opinion. You should seek the advice of legal counsel of your own choice before acting upon any information from this podcast. Contacting us by phone or any other means does not establish an attorney-client relationship.